Happy holidays, everybody. Welcome to Big East Shootaround live from New York City. John Fanta here with you with our final episode before conference play begins. That's right. You're going to have your Christmas holiday, and then Big East play will be loading up December the 30th. Now is the time of year for those final non-conference tests. Georgetown right behind me. You see that sign? Well, it's fitting for this week because La Jolla is taking down the Syracuse Orange, and we'll talk with their star, Mac McClung, in just a little bit on the show. Plus, it's the end of the 2010s, and with that, we'll have a Big East All-Decade team to cap off the show. We'll open it up for all of you to weigh in. Should be a fascinating topic. But let's turn to the latest Big East headlines, and we start with this Georgetown team. How about the Hoyas? They were shorthanded with the losses of James Akinjo, Josh LeBlanc, then you throw in Myron Gardner, Galen Alexander, and yet Georgetown, just with a 7-man rotation, has made things work, and that's because McClung is simply on another level right now, and the Hoyas have been able to get themselves on the right track to be in NCAA tournament contention this season. And that seemed unlikely just a couple weeks ago with all the different turmoil, but it's been addition by subtraction in a variety of ways. Omer Yurtseven has given this team the post presence and filled that hole left by Jesse Govan. You think about Jamarco Pickett, a junior, along with his classmate Javon Blair, and Jacob Mosley, a senior, who really is playing a leadership role for the Hoyas, coming off that win over Syracuse. And for Georgetown, this is big for Patrick Ewing because year 3 was supposed to be a year where the expectation level got raised. At the end of the day, the Hoyas, they've been able to get some quality wins and counting. They'll head into Big East play taking on Providence on New Year's Eve at the Dunkin' Donuts Center. Number 2, it's a marquee Saturday showdown. The number 1 team in the country is coming to Philadelphia. Kansas will take on number 18 Villanova Saturday, noon Eastern time on Fox. Our Darryl Reynolds will be there with the latest from Wells Fargo as the Cats, they have 2 losses on their season, have taken care of business against everybody they've needed to, falling just short to a really, really good Baylor team. And this Villanova team, they lost to an Ohio State squad that's been one of the best in America as well. So there's no shame in that. But they lack that great result. That result that you could say as a selection committee, okay, Villanova is somebody that we can consider as one of the top 10, top 12, 13 teams in the country. They're ranked 18th right now, but with a prime opportunity. It's everything you could want in a non-conference matchup. You're home. You get the number 1 team in the land. Villanova at their best, they could take down Kansas on Saturday. Now it's whether they can capitalize and whether they can get going defensively. They've got to find a way to slow down Devon Dotson, who's a fantastic guard. And then, will Villanova's spacing work on Saturday against Kansas, or will the size of Udoka Azubuike control this game? How the Cats, who particularly, they like to go small, how they go up against Azubuike in the paint is really going to be interesting to me. But a big stage for those wing players and Sadiq Bey and Jermaine Samuels and some others there. And we'll see if Colin Gillespie can control the backcourt game because he's got a strong, strong test on the other side coming from Dotson. Number 3, speaking of big tests, how about this? Seton Hall, without Miles Powell and Sandro Mamukelashvili, the Pirates, their expectation level changes because you've got those 2 players injured right now. Powell being listed as a week-to-week situation because he's in concussion protocol, and Mamukelashvili out for another 7 weeks in and around there. And so now the Pirates take on number 7 Maryland tonight on FS1. Gus Johnson will be on the call with Bill Raftery from the Prudential Center. Pirates are a big game team, but they need some players to rise up into those roles. I'm talking about Jared Rhoden, the sophomore. Can he figure something out? You're looking at Sandro Mamukelashvili. The Hall's going to be without him in this game, and so they have to find others to step up. The size of this team has to show. Ike Obiagu and Romaro Gill, they've got to be better. When you're missing a player as good as Powell, it means they've got to find someone else. And it's not just going to be one guy. It's got to be a couple by committee. But even then, you need someone to lead. You need Quincy McKnight, who averaged 20 points per game at Sacred Heart before transferring to the Hall, to still step up and figure something out. For the Pirates, it's tough sledding without their 2 best players. But they're going to ask for some underclassmen to get into roles that they haven't been asked to be in. Sometimes that's when you find out the best about some of your players. We'll see if that's the case here tonight against Maryland. Let's take a deeper dive on these Georgetown Hoyas. Earlier this week, Megan Caffrey catching up with sophomore star Mac McClung.
Georgetown star Mac McClung joins us now into Big East Shootaround. Mac, you're averaging 21 points per game, and you've been named the Big East Player of the Week the past 2 weeks. What's been clicking for you offensively as of recent?
I think my teammates, you got to give them a lot of credit. A lot of them just been stepping up, like Jake and Mosley and Omir and everybody pretty much. So we really been moving the ball around a lot lately, and I've been just trying to take advantage and be aggressive.
With 4 players departing from your roster within these past few weeks, how has your team responded to adversity?
I think we came together. That's hard. We had a lot of great players that unfortunate things happened, but I think, like I said, we came together and we've kind of found a little role.
Mac, how have you found a leadership role amongst all of this?
I felt like, I was in a situation I needed to step up. Guys, I feel like we really came together, like I just said, and I don't know, I feel like everything's clicking. Everybody's on the same page.
How would you describe yourself as a leader?
I'm vocal at times, but I try to make my point come across when it's needed. I don't try to talk all the time, but lead by example mostly.
Your teammate UCF transfer Terrell Allen has had 29 assists with just 6 turnovers on this 4-game surge. What's been the difference in his game?
I think he has a lot more freedom now. He's doing great. He's a vet, like you said. He knows his way around. But no, he's a great guy off the court, and he's playing lights out.
Mac, Big East play is right around the corner. What's the mindset going into conference play?
You got to stay on this roll. Big East is really stacked this year, so I'm just going to try to stay on this roll and stay focused and stay together.
What's been the key thing that you said, like on this role that you're on, what's been the key thing offensively that's been clicking on this role?
A ball movement, I think, is the biggest, and everybody sharing the ball. Everybody is playing to their strengths, and I think we're having a lot of fun, a lot more fun out there.
Where is the toughest place to play in the Big East?
Wow, that's great. And I would say probably Butler. I really like their arena, and I'm excited to play there this year.
What is the tough thing about Hinkle? People say this all the time, Hinkle Magic. What is the tough thing about Hinkle?
It's just kind of real packed in, and you feel like the people are kind of on top of you, I guess, and it gets really loud in there if they get some runs and stuff. So,
who is the best player that you've had to guard?
There's a lot of great players. I don't know. I think Miles Powell, Marcus Howard, they're great players, and some guys you got to stay with and stay focused on.
Mac, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem at all.
It's time to tilt those glasses down. We're getting inside the numbers, and we know you Hoops junkies love this segment. It's Big East in the Net. First edition of the Net rankings coming out earlier this week, and let's take a look at where the conference stands. Now, the league, you see Butler. That was the biggest thing that stood out about the conference. Number 4 in the net ratings. And when you think about what the Bulldogs have been able to package together, it stands out. A statement win over Florida earlier this season. They had wins over Missouri as well as Stanford in the Hall of Fame. They beat Minnesota at home. They've really handled business and only lost by 1 at Baylor. That doesn't hurt them. It actually helps them. Villanova, Georgetown filling out in the top 40. And you've got several teams right in the middle of the pack. A DePaul team that has showed us what they can do, but lost to Buffalo, so that probably brought their ranking down a little bit. But they did beat Texas Tech, road wins at Iowa and at Minnesota. Their net's in really good standing for them to get back to the NCAA tournament. Marquette in a solid place, and Seton Hall and Creighton, as well as St. John's. And St. John's has one of the best wins in the Big East. West Virginia is a top 15 net team. Johnny's capitalized at Madison Square Garden in the Big East Big 12 battle. That's big time for Mike Anderson in his first season. That win has St. John's up to 65. And you think about Xavier, the Musketeers are a surefire NCAA tournament team in a lot of people's minds. And in every bracketology you see right now where the Big East is sending 6 and maybe 7 teams into the tournament, Xavier's one of those teams that's right at the top of people's lists. But a loss at Wake Forest, a loss to Florida, and really lacking that great win, that's keeping the Musketeers from a strong net. And if we take a look at the Big East as it pertains to other conferences, that's really another interesting thing here, because we looked at the top 68 teams in the country. You see in the field. Now, we fully acknowledge that that doesn't mean the top 68 are getting into the NCAA tournament because you've got automatic qualifiers. But if you took the top 68, the Big East would have the second highest percentage. And Xavier's at 71. So it's very possible you could have 9 of the 10 in the top 68 in America. There's no question. Metrics, statistics, anything you look at, the Big Ten is having the strongest year out of any conference. It's just the league's depth. But the Big East is in a solid spot. What you always want to say at this juncture is, do we have a place at the table with those 5 other leagues that you're really competing with year in and year out? The Big 12, Big 10, Pac-12, ACC, and the SEC. And the Big East is right in the thick of things in a solid spot to get, on average, 5.3 teams in the NCAA tournament, and right now it looks like you could see 6 and maybe even a 7-bid year. That's really strong for the Big East Conference. Good things happening for the league, and heading into league play, talking with Stu Jackson, the Senior Associate Commissioner of Men's Basketball here earlier this season, he said as a conference, when you talk to the selection committee, you typically know how many teams can make the NCAA tournament right around this time of year, because non-conference play is pretty much wrapped up. And in league play, you've got a lot of teams that are at 9-9, 10-8, and that have done enough in their non-con, or at least you think that they would have done enough in their non-con to get in. But remember what we've seen in the NCAA tournament. We've seen teams just 3 games over 500, like 16-13, 17-15 a team got in. It has happened, so it's still so early, but for the Big East, in a pretty strong spot in the debut of the net, behind the biggest surprise in the conference and one of the biggest in America, Laval Jordan's Butler Bulldogs. Let's get an inside look at these Villanova Wildcats, the 3-time reigning Big East tournament champions. Will they be at the top of the conference again? Well, they have quite the tune-up before league play begins, with the #1 ranked Kansas Jayhawks coming to town on Saturday. We caught up with the big man, D-Ray, former Villanova center Daryl Reynolds, to talk about the Cats.
We now welcome into Shootaround former Villanova center Daryl Reynolds. We're going to talk a little bit of Villanova hoops. Daryl, the Wildcats are 8-2 on the season. They're 18th in the country. What do you make of where they're at right now?
They're progressing. They're progressing. You know, like you said, they're 8-2. Those 2 games were rough losses, but they're figuring themselves out. You know, they're figuring out their identity. And it's interesting. You know, it's one of his younger teams in a while. We thought last year was young, but this year without any seniors, they really have to figure out their identity and how to fit in the Villanova culture, but they're doing great right now.
What do they have to do to get to where they want to be?
Just they have to continue to pay attention to detail. You know what I mean? With younger teams, they have all the talent. There's no lack of talent on that team at all, but you can't buy experience. And with experience, you start to realize the little things that make a difference in a game. Quite frankly, that could be the difference between them being 10-0 and 8-2. But the beauty of it, like I said, is they have no lack of talent, so they're figuring it out. They're figuring out their identity along the way, but just attention to detail.
Looking ahead to this weekend, Villanova is taking on Kansas. They're 9th in the country, averaging 84.6 points per game.
Yeah.
What does Villanova's defense have to do to contain the Jayhawks?
They have to continue to play that pack line defense. They can't let the ball get in the middle. If you watch the Jayhawks play a lot of times, you know, once that ball gets in the middle, they kick out for threes or they get a shot up and they just crash the boards. You know, they have a lot of length and athleticism, so I think keeping that ball out of the middle is going to be a huge part. Obviously, slowing down Dotson and Azubuike, you can't stop players like that, but if you can limit their touches and make other guys make decisions, it'll be great. But most of all, just rebound. You know, when you look at that Jayhawks team, they live off of the idea their guards can shoot with a conscious, you know, a free conscious, because they know if we miss this, there's a great chance one of our guys is getting it. So boxing out and rebounding is going to be a huge part of it for Villanova.
You mentioned Udoka Azubuike. As a big man yourself, how do you prepare for that matchup?
I'm so glad you got his name right.
We were practicing that.
he's a, I'm not going to say a one-of-a-kind player, but he is a very unique player. When you have somebody that big, that physical, but still can get off the ground as fast as him, you really have to beat him to the punch. He's one of those guys that you have to, the moment a shot goes up, you have to hit him first. Because you give him a chance to hit you, you see what he do. It turns into tip dunks, it turns into offensive rebounds that then turns into threes. So you really have to, with a guy like that, you have to apply pressure. You can't feel pressure.
Going into the locker room a little bit more now, you mentioned Villanova's a little bit of a younger team now. What is head coach Jay Wright telling to his team to get them set for playing the #1 team in the country?
You want the PG version? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Coach Wright, believe it or not, his message before every game is generally the same. This is our biggest game because it's our next game. You know what I mean? And it's one of the attitudes that's been adopted at Villanova that's allowed the success over these past couple years. It's the idea of not getting too high or too low in any game. You know, I got a feeling that they're going to look at this game on Saturday, and if they win, they're going to go back the next day, figure out what they could have did better and get better. If they lose, they're going to do the exact same thing. So I think Coach Wright's message to stay even keel throughout the game and throughout the season is what allows for success later down the line.
How important is it for you as a player to really buy into that, to be able to stay even keeled?
It's not the easiest thing to grasp, especially as a young player, you know, because you are so used to, especially in high school, you know, you're used to games where you just blow teams out and you're the most talented team. And then in college, things kind of level out, and it really comes down to who can play the hardest and who can pay the most attention to detail. Like, you see teams with, they might not look the best on paper, but they make a ton of noise when it comes time to play. So it's definitely a skill. It's like something you constantly have to work at. It's every day. It's a conscious decision to realize that, like I said, not to get too high, get too low. But it's just something that you have to buy into, like you said, to make it at Villanova. Quite frankly, make it in any program that is constantly successful. I'm pretty sure Bill Self preaches the same to his players. You know, Coach K. You know, we spoke on Ed Cooley earlier. You know, in the Big East, to get back to the Big East, a guy who also gives that message off to, you know, just understand that it's going to be some highs, there's going to be some lows. You can't change with them. You have to continue and stick to your code.
Well, there you have it. Thank you very much, Daryl Reynolds from Villanova.
We'll have complete coverage on a loaded college hoops Saturday, Villanova and Kansas, and Daryl Reynolds will be there. Matt Schumacher will be in Indianapolis covering Butler and Purdue in one of the great one-day events. All 4 Indiana teams, it's Butler, Purdue, Notre Dame, Indiana. They get together for the Crossroads Classic and the Shoe Deal. We'll have coverage of the Dogs and the Purdue Boilermakers. Another resume opportunity for Butler, already with a net rating of 4. Well, it could rise even more. DePaul hosting Northwestern, Blue Demons looking to stay at just 1 loss. And then really interesting for the Creighton Blue Jays heading to Arizona State. That would be a great road win for them. But Arizona State with Remy Martin, really interesting matchup there between high-level playmakers, Tyshawn Alexander for the Jays, the junior, and Martin on the other side for Bobby Hurley's Sun Devils. Texas and Providence, Dunkin' Donuts Center should be rocking. There's some history between those two teams in the Big East Big 12 battle. They'll be meeting on Saturday. And then Xavier heading down to TCU. Musketeers looking to have a better performance on the road after a tough loss to Wake Forest. We'll see if they can respond. And finally, another one to watch, St. John's. Some hoops after dark, folks. Saturday, 10 Eastern Time, ESPN2. They'll be at the Chase Center, the brand new Golden State Warriors arena, to take on Arizona. And that team with Nico Mannion, just loaded with a lot of talent. Wildcats and Johnnies deep into your Saturday night. Get that Christmas wrapping done and then hang out, watch the Johnnies play late night. I think that's a pretty good Saturday night. You turn down the Christmas tunes, you put on some Big East hoops. Or why not? Put them both on. Finally, it is time for the all-decade team in the Big East. In the last 10 years, gave this one a lot of thought, talked with a couple of people, said, what do you think? And we want you to jump in on Twitter at BigEastMBB. I'm at John_Fanta. Use the hashtag BigEastHoops with your all-decade team. And we did 6 players, so 5 starters and then somebody coming in off the bench. We could change up our lineup a little bit, but the point is, here is the all-decade team. I start out with Party at Kemba's. Kemba Walker of UConn provided one of the best moments in Big East history With the Huskies coming back July 1st of 2020, that moment's going to be on every video board, every montage you see forever at Madison Square Garden, and that's why Kemba's on the All Big East Decade team. He's accompanied by Jalen Brunson in the backcourt. Brunson getting named Sporting News College Basketball Athlete in the Decade, a 103-13 record at Villanova, and 2 national championships. Say no more. Josh Hart of Villanova. He's got to be on there because of what he did throughout his career, national champion, and just did it all. Big East Player of the Year, and for the Cats, he defined Swiss Army knife. Could defend any position, could do anything you wanted him to, and played the 3, but it seemed like he was playing every position at times. Playing at the power forward slot, Doug McDermott of Creighton. Has to be on there. Dougie McBuckets, National Player of the Year in the 2013-14 season, and he's right behind me with that classic jump shot, unlimited range, and he formed one of the best stories we've seen in the Big East, albeit 1 year, but him and Greg McDermott coming in the league and selling out Madison Square Garden in the Big East tournament title game when the Jays took on Providence. You thought to yourself, man, this 10-team Big East, it can work with the sea of Creighton blue that was there in 2014. Finally down low, it's the rebounding king himself, number 31, Angel Delgado of Seton Hall, the Big East's all-time leading rebounder. His positioning on the glass, more than anything, wasn't a 7-footer, but at 6'10", knew where to be and when to be there, and was absolutely relentless. Coming off the bench for me, it's a 2,300-point scorer. It's someone who landed on the All-Big East first team 3 times in his career. There's only a handful that have done that. Trayvon Blewett of Xavier. What he did for the Musketeers, he raised the bar for them. They were able to get up to top seeds in the NCAA tournament throughout his career. They won a Big East regular season championship. He was part of the Musketeers rising up in the conference and showing that they can be a contender year in and year out in the Big East. Trayvon Blewett, a walking bucket, and that completes my all-decade team. Open up the debate. I'm sure you'll have arguments, but that's what this is all about. It's why we don't always love doing lists, but it's the beauty of it as we celebrate the last decade. So many great players in this conference. It's not easy to come up with that all-decade team. Other things to watch here. After Christmas, we'll jump into Big East play, which means there's some early conference games you got to look out for. We start with December 30th. What a doubleheader. Finneran Pavilion, Villanova, welcoming in Xavier. That'll be followed by Seton Hall at DePaul. Will Miles Powell be back by then? That'll be a fascinating storyline. Then on New Year's Eve, ring in the new year in Queens. St. John's hosting number 17 Butler. The Dogs they've had some hauntings at Carnesecca Arena. It's been a house of horrors for them at times. Mike Anderson's Big East debut comes on New Year's Eve. Then ring in the new year with 3s. January 1, Marquette, Creighton. These 2 teams have put up some absolute bonanzas from beyond the arc. This will be a New Year's party, if you've ever seen one, between Creighton and Marquette in Omaha. Have some steak, then head to CHI Health Center. January 4th, Fox or FS1, depending on the NFL playoff schedule. Joe, Troy, just let us know where you're going, and then we'll figure it out. Villanova, Marquette, in Milwaukee. Should be fun. Michael Coyne's all over it. He does all our great scheduling here at the Big East Conference, and will let us know where that game will be as the Cats head to Milwaukee to take on Marcus Howard at Fiserv Forum. The roof is going to pop off that place. Finally, Merry Christmas from all of us here at Big East Shootaround. Bobby Mullen, Ben Piasek, Rick Gentile, our amazing crew, and happy holidays from the Big East Conference. Hope you have a safe Christmas. Get some rest, because the 18-game grind takes a toll on not just the guys on the floor, but everybody watching this show. It is a winding road, and in this league, a Big East Conference where the average net you saw is just around 50, buckle your seatbelts and have the popcorn ready, because conference play starts December 30th. We need everybody well rested for that. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody, and a happy holiday season. So long. We'll see you in 2020 on Big East Shootaround.